It's time for overtime.
And I know just the guy to talk to.
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Tell me more, tell me more.
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Hour number 2 on a Tuesday. Appreciate you being with us as always. I'm Bert Rabin. You can track me down on Twitter at any time at BertESPN. You can also weigh in on the show on the ESPN hotline, 605-362-3776. Women's Final Four talk, odds and storylines coming up. Pro Fisherman Ted Takasaki set to swing by here in about 25 minutes. Tips for the spring, hopefully the kickoff to the spring fishing season right around the corner. We'll also get you the good, the bad, the ugly before sending you on your way. Tomorrow's show a tad early, making way for Twins baseball at 11:30. We'll go at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Got to get up a little bit earlier tomorrow with overtime. Scorecard now. NHL Finals. Detroit won in Tampa. Big win for the Red Wings 4-2. Pittsburgh upset win over the Rangers in New York yesterday. 5-2 the final there. Colorado lost in Columbus 4-1. Edmonton lost in St. Louis 3-2 in overtime. And Winnipeg stays up there near the top right now in their respective conference with a big win at home to the Kings 4-3 the final. Tonight in the NHL, Blackhawks at Islanders 6:30. Senators at the Wild from St. Paul 7 o'clock. Canucks at Golden Knights 9 o'clock. All three of those games streamable on ESPN+. Latest Western Conference standings in the NHL. Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, in that order in the Central Division. Pacific Division, it's Vancouver, Edmonton, and Vegas. And the wild card standings right now. First wild card spot belongs to Nashville. They got 90 points. The LA Kings are second with 87. St. Louis Blues are the first team out with 84. And the second team out, the Minnesota Wild, 79 points right now. They've played 73 games. Very few games remaining to make a big run, but Minnesota is definitely not eliminated, as the fact is, matter remains, neither is Seattle or Calgary that have 4 and 6 respectively less points than the Minnesota Wild right now. Still very much in it, but need to be just about perfect down the stretch and have some teams ahead of them stumble down the way. Maybe Vegas, maybe the Kings and Predators, or some combination. And they also got to hope that the St. Louis Blues cool off as well down the stretch. NBA sights and sounds from last night. We got to start with Boston. They went on the road and got a win over Charlotte. Jason Tatum, another double-double.
6 on the shot clock. Tatum knows it. Switches to the right hand. Gets to the elbow. His jumper is good. He knew it.
25 points, 10 rebounds for Tatum. 118-104 the win in Charlotte for the Celtics. They're 59-16. Indiana, big lopsided win at home over Brooklyn, 133-111. Halliburton, 27 points in that win. Pacers are 43-33. Atlanta beats up on Chicago in the Windy City last night, 113-101. And lastly, Devin Booker, big night. Suns, a big win.
Booker on the dribble against Daniels again. Crosses over to his left. Hesitates, then drives through the lane. Runs one up and in with the right hand. 52 for Devin Booker for the second straight trip to New Orleans. His third straight game here in the Big Easy with over 50. And the Suns are up 9. 119-110.
124-111 would be the final score last night. 52 points, 9 assists for Devin Booker. New record for the Suns, 44-31. And as we gear up for some Timberwolves basketball tonight, they're still in third place right now in the Western Conference. They've officially clinched a playoff spot. They're one game behind the OKC Thunder for the top spot, and they're a half game out of the second spot that currently belongs to the Denver Nuggets. Tonight in the NBA, 6 o'clock jump times, Lakers at Raptors, Bucks at Wizards, 6:30 on TNT, Thunder at Sixers, 7 o'clock, Timberwolves are home to the red-hot Houston Rockets, although they did have their long winning streak snapped recently. Rockets at Timberwolves, 7 o'clock, Spurs at Nuggets at 8, Mavericks at Warriors, 9 o'clock on TNT. Men's basketball, Final Four starts on Saturday from Glendale, Arizona. NC State and Purdue first, 5 o'clock on TBS. Alabama and UConn, the nightcap on Saturday night, 7:45. TBS start time, Alabama and UConn. Women's basketball, WNIT final. Minnesota is moving on to the semis. They'll face Troy coming up on Wednesday night as they took care of business in Laramie against Wyoming with a 65-54 win there. And a big night, the biggest night, in my opinion, in women's college basketball history. LSU and Iowa, UConn and USC. First things first for the Tigers and the Hawkeyes. Hot start for Iowa, hot finish for Iowa. They get the job done. Here's last night's final call.
Dad will do it. This time, it's Iowa. The Hawkeyes are headed back to the Final Four. Galactic greatness from Caitlin Clark on display yet again.
Caitlin Clark, 41 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists, and 9 3-pointers as Iowa gets the redemptive win, punches their ticket to another Final Four, 94-87 the final. Here's head coach Lisa Bluter on the strong play in the first and in particular the third quarter that led to last night's win.
I just think we started the game and we started the third quarter with a punch, and that really helped us a lot, gave us a lot of confidence on the defensive end.
I don't think there's such thing as pressure in the world in the mind of Caitlin Clark, but last night somebody asked her about the audience, if that was a factor with the number of eyeballs there in person and watching over TV, listening on the radio. Did it matter? Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, you're playing for a little more with a Final Four on the line, but to me, I'm not thinking oh my God, there's 15 million people at home watching this game right now. No, that's not what's happening. It's what can I do for my team to help me win the game right now?
Caitlin Clark certainly did her part, 41 points, 7 rebounds, and 12 assists. Also doing her part last night, Paige Beckers, one of the other best players in all of women's college basketball right now, 28 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists for Beckers, helping third-seeded UConn upset top-seeded USC. Seed upset, to be clear, the favored team last night heading in was UConn, 80-73 the final there, UConn 33-5, and back where they belong in the Final Four is one of the best programs in recent memory and in women's college basketball history. And it's a testament to his team not giving up, says head coach Gino Auriemma.
I'm so proud of them, and their sense of belief in themselves never wavered, no matter what happened, no matter who we lost, one after another. They never gave up on their dream, and now here we are.
Final Four for the women is set. That begins Friday from Cleveland, NC State and South Carolina, 6 o'clock on ESPN. The first game, 8 o'clock. Got to stay up late on Friday night, kind of. On ESPN, 8 o'clock the jump time, Iowa and UConn. A couple can't-miss matchups as the men's Final Four, pretty darn fun. But I'm going to be honest here. I think the women's tournament has been better this year. There's less Cinderellas on the women's side, but in terms of marquee star power and stars colliding, it's the best we've seen in quite some time. Women's basketball, Final Four, NC State, South Carolina, 6 o'clock. UConn, Iowa, 8 o'clock on Friday. Men's side, NC State, Purdue, 5 o'clock on Saturday. Alabama, UConn, 7:45 on Saturday night. Major League Baseball, several lopsided affairs. It started in Chicago, where the Cubs get win number 2 on the season by blanking the Rockies.
And he will hit a fly ball into right field. It's going to be a base hit. Falling in front of Blackman. 1 run is in. Here comes the second run. 2 runs score. The throw to third. And out there is Happ. A 2-run score on a looping single into right by Cody Bellinger. As both Gomes and Tauchman come in to score. As we go to the 8th inning.
5-0 the final. Chicago now 2-2 on the season. That's one Chicago team. The other Chicago team not having a lot of fun so far this year. They fall to Atlanta 9-0 at home. White Sox are 0-4.
Ball and no strikes on Austin Riley. Pitch on the way. Swung on and hammered to deep right field. That's going to send the outfielders back to the wall, and that is out of the ballpark. Man, Riley coming out hot after the rain delay. A 3-run homer to right center, and it's 9-0 Braves in the 8th.
Braves win at 9-0. White Sox 0-4. Kansas City lost to Baltimore 6-4 yesterday. Detroit won in New York over the Mets 5-0. Other winners and losers. Cleveland lost to Seattle 5-4. Yankees over the Diamondbacks 5-2. New York 5-0. And St. Louis gets a much-needed win. They're 2-3 with a 6-2 win over San Diego. Biggest story yesterday in baseball, though, was Ronel Blanco. No-hitter for Houston in a 10-0 win for the Astros.
2-2 to Guerrero. Ground ball tap. Blanco lets it go by. Dubon fields. Throws to first. In time. A no-hitter! Ronel Blanco! Yainer Diaz, the first to jump into his arms. And the rest of his teammates come out to mob him. Ronel Blanco has thrown the 17th no-hitter in Houston Astros history as the Astros defeat the Toronto Blue Jays 10-0.
That's the final there, 10-0. Ronel Blanco, remember the name? No-hitter, first of the season for Major League Baseball. Today and tonight in Major League Baseball, you got to start and end with the Twins here on ESPN Sioux Falls. 2:30 pregame, 3:10 the start time. Twins are in Milwaukee, matching up with the Brewers. Home opening weekend begins on Thursday when they play host to the Cleveland Guardians. Today's matchup, you can listen right here on ESPN Sioux Falls, or you can stream it also on ESPN Plus. Again, start time this afternoon, 3:10, Twins at the Brewers. NFL draft at the end of the month. There's a lot going on as far as quarterbacks go, both in and out of the draft. Here's what Adam Schefter had to say about the next quarterback that's set to get paid via a huge contract.
At some point this offseason, before training camp begins, there are people around the league who believe that Jordan Love will get extended. So maybe he's next. But I would say, how about this? The quarterback will come from the NFC North, and we'll see how that shakes out.
We'll wait and see. Adam Schefter talking about Jordan Love getting paid. He did get a little bit of a quasi-extension last year. Instead of a fifth-year option, the Packers added a year on his deal and kind of worked out the financials that way. But the time is now. Strike when the iron is hot, and less hot than it might be at this time next offseason, where Jordan Love might be coming off another great campaign as the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, the guy he replaced, Aaron Rodgers, out there in the Big Apple with the New York Jets. Chris Canty says the Jets need to start thinking about their quarterback future right now as well.
I think the Jets is an obvious one. Like, they don't know they need a quarterback, but they do. They do. I mean, they're all in pot committed to Aaron Rodgers, but they shouldn't be. And I don't think that quarterback, if they were to draft one with a top 10 pick, is going to save Rob Saleh or Joe Douglas's job, so they won't. But if you're Woody Johnson and you're taking a macro view of your program, then drafting a quarterback is absolutely what you should and could do. Aaron Rodgers be damned. And so I think that would be the team that I would highlight at the top of this year's draft that should probably be in the quarterback market. That won't be.
New York Jets, pick number 10 right now. And there were reports yesterday that the Jets might make that pick available for trade. I feel like they're a little bit too far down to be broadcasting that as a possible landing spot to come up and draft your quarterback, if that's what the trade up is for. There's a lot of big name players. It's a quarterback rich class. It's an offensive lineman rich class, and it's a wide receiver rich class this season. Those are the three big positions that we talked with Matt Miller on the show last week about that really highlight this class. Tackle, maybe some guards in the NFL. So guys that played tackle in college will move over to guard, maybe some center play. But that's a big strength. Wide receiver is huge with Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and so many other guys. Roma Dunze on that list, and potentially 6 quarterbacks in the first round, and maybe all 6 of those guys get taken in the top 15 of this year's NFL draft as well. It's heading your way at the end of the month from Detroit, April 25th through the 27th. Rounding out your scorecard, NASCAR race Sunday, 2 o'clock on Fox Sports 1 from Martinsville. PGA Tour Golf, the Valero Texas Open from San Antonio, running Thursday through Sunday. And it's week 2 in the UFL coming up this weekend. Saturday, 2 games, Sunday, 2 games. You can catch those on ESPN, ABC, and Fox over the weekend. In a game that lived up to the hype last night, as we begin your Reliabank headlines of the day, the rematch of the 2023 Women's NCAA Tournament Championship game. Only one star from a year ago could move on to the Final Four, and that is the biggest star of the college basketball season, Caitlin Clark. For the second year in a row, Clark had a legendary Elite 8 performance, leading her top-seeded Iowa Hawkeyes to a 94-87 win over the defending national champion LSU Tigers, the number 3 seed in that regional. Clark had 41 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds, breaking even more records in what has been a record-shattering senior season for Clark. She was named the regional's most outstanding player, but what matters most to Clark is getting another chance at a national championship, something Iowa was denied last season in a 102-85 loss to LSU. Clark will lead Iowa against UConn, the winners of that Portland 3 regional, on Friday in the national semifinals. Following the win yesterday, Clark briefly sat on the court amid confetti, her teammates and their family members taking photos around her as the nets were cut. I just think having a little silence for myself was the biggest thing, Clark said. You're a competitor. You work so hard for 40 minutes just to soak it in. Enjoy it. Take a couple deep breaths because these moments go fast. My career is almost over. Hopefully she ends it on top. She doesn't have to be one of the all-time greats, as I said earlier in the show. Caitlin Clark's college career slated to be over soon, but she's expected to be the number 1 overall pick by Indiana in the April 15th WNBA draft, but she still has at least one more game to wear an Iowa jersey, the number 22 that has become one of the most popular jerseys in all of basketball. The Hawkeyes entered the Elite Eight as the number 1 seed, but were perceived by many as the underdogs, in part because the Tigers won last season's title game rather decisively, but the Hawkeyes started Monday's game sharp. And in the third quarter, where Clark's logo three-pointer stole the show, Iowa built a lead that it didn't give up. It just felt like that was the big turning point of the game. We saw Iowa punch early, and to LSU's credit, they kept on coming. Angel Reese was clearly dinged up last night. What a performance by her. But Iowa came out of the halftime break with a vengeance and nailed several big threes, set up several big shots, and they were running so much. It was one of those games last night watching that I was getting tired for the players while I was watching because that first half was exhausting to watch. I couldn't imagine being a broadcaster. So many points in the first quarter, back and forth and transition bucket, block, steal, transition bucket. It was all over the place in a really great game that lived up to the hype. Caitlin Clark, Paige Becker's next to collide in the national semifinals. Today's scheduled baseball game between South Dakota State and Minnesota has been postponed due to projected inclement weather. No makeup date has been determined at this time. Next up for South Dakota State, Jackrabbit baseball. They're 11-15. They'll return to action Friday up in Fargo for a 3-game series against North Dakota State. Friday at 6 p.m. is the projected start time. South Dakota State senior pitcher Tori Kanishi recognized again by the Summit League as the Ticket Smarter Peak Pitcher of the Week. Kanishi was rewarded with the honor for the second consecutive time and the third time during the young season. She went 2-0 this past week, which included the 10th no-hitter of her college career. SDSU program record holder in career wins has a 10-5 record this year and a 2.17 ERA, another honor for Tori Kanishi of South Dakota State softball. Congratulations. More to come in her career, I'm sure. The Sioux Falls Skyforce announced that the organization will play host to the NBA G League playoffs presented by the Google Pixel on Friday, April the 5th, after the team finished with a 22-12 regular season record, the second seed in the Western Conference, and back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time since 2014 through 2016 for the Skyforce. Tip-off for the Western Conference semis slated for 8 o'clock Central. Doors open at 7. Game will also be broadcast on the Tubi app as well. Sioux Falls will play the winner of Oklahoma City and Rio Grande Valley, who play tonight at 9 o'clock Central Time. Tickets very affordable. SFSkyforce.com. Tickets for Friday's game priced at $5, $10, $15, depending on the section. Currently available, again, SFSkyforce.com. Still so much to get to on this Tuesday edition of Overtime. We take the break. When we come back, we're diving into those odds for women's basketball. Yesterday, on the men's side, we gave you the individual spreads for the matchups between Purdue and others on that men's side. We got so much going on. Purdue taking on NC State, Alabama, UConn. Also gave you the title odds. We'll do the same coming up next for the women's Final Four from Cleveland. Can't wait to talk about that. Stay tuned as well. In about 10 minutes, we'll be talking area fishing and much, much more with pro fisherman Ted Takasaki. He joins us momentarily on this Tuesday edition of Overtime.
College hoops and NBA basketball, the NFL and Major League Baseball. It's all here on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
right along. It's the Tuesday edition of Overtime right here on ESPN Sioux Falls. We got Ted Takasaki coming up here momentarily. He is in the studio. We'll crack the mic with him next segment. We're talking women's basketball quickly. Some odds here. North Carolina State, South Carolina, UConn, and Iowa. The Final Four on the women's side. Here are the latest spreads courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook in case you're wondering what Vegas thinks will happen. On the men's side yesterday, we told you Vegas thinks it's going to be UConn over Purdue in the men's national title game. And for the women's side, they're thinking South Carolina, of course, and they're thinking it's USC winning over Iowa, as Iowa is a 2.5-point favorite against UConn. Spreads, of course, will change. Over-under for that contest is 163 right now. DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, Iowa is a 2.5-point favorite in that game. Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark. Again, more star power, more excitement coming to the women's tournament. And then South Carolina, North Carolina State. It is South Carolina an 11.5-point favorite in that contest. So if you're looking for the long shots, North Carolina State in both tournaments are definitely long shots at this stage in the Final Four. As far as championships odds go from DraftKings Sportsbook, South Carolina odds-on favorite, way ahead of everybody else. They're minus 195. Iowa Hawkeyes are second at plus 300. Bargain bin, UConn plus 600. And the long shot, North Carolina State plus 1,600 in those latest odds. Again, the women's Final Four begins on Friday from Cleveland. Scheduled there coming up then, 6 o'clock on ESPN, NC State and South Carolina. 8 o'clock on ESPN. It'll be later than that, but 8 o'clock on ESPN is the projected start time. UConn and Iowa Friday night. And the men's Final Four starts on Saturday from Glendale, Arizona. NC State and Purdue, 5 o'clock on TBS. Alabama and UConn, 7:45 on TBS to round out and begin our Final Four coverage this year. Again, those odds courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook. It's time now to head to the great outdoors. We're going to talk some fishing, some wildlife, and gearing up for hopefully the spring season out on the water. You got your boat dusted off. You got it ready to rumble. Maybe it's time for a safety checkup. Everything needs to get checked out and be safe out on the water this year, people. We'll dive into everything you need to know about the area fishing scene. Ted Takasaki, pro fisherman from right here in the 605, joins us next on Overtime.
The best and coverage. We are ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. It is the Tuesday edition of Overtime. It's time to head to the great outdoors, as I said a moment ago as we went to break. One of our favorites back in the studio, Ted Takasaki, pro fisherman. He fishes year-round, ice fishing, everything. It doesn't matter to him. He's a guy who probably would go fishing in the middle of a cyclone, middle of a tsunami, across the board, all sorts of great stuff. Ted Takasaki joining us now. Always a blast to see your smiling face. There's always a smile on your face, Ted. Great to have you again. How you doing?
Doing just great. I mean, you know, it's easy to smile when you do what you love to do for a living. So.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
In fact, I'd like to be in your spot too.
Hey, I love my spot too. I'm always a smiling guy too these days. The weather though, Jekyll and Hyde weather, is it finally turning to spring? And let's talk about spring fishing. There's a lot to get into there. Comment on the weather, and then as you gear up for the season, how exciting is this time?
Oh, this is the most exciting time of the year. I mean, everybody's anxious to get out. That's why, you know, boat sales are just jam-packed right now. The dealership, you can't get a boat in there to get it fixed or rigged, or, you know, I mean, you know, it's a challenge. So, but that's what spring fever is all about. You know, I mean, The fish are waking up. I mean, this is the easiest time of the year to catch good fish. I mean, big ones.
Yep.
And, you know, you just have to be in the right lake at the right time and with the right stuff. And once you do that, it's just a matter of a little bit of luck.
And when you talk about the fish, and this is the easiest time of the year, from somebody as naive as me, is that because the fish have been under the ice and not eating as much and conserving energy and they're ready to go and ready to feed?
That's really basically it. Water temperatures increase, and usually, fish are a cold-blooded species of animal, and so they they start waking up when the water temperature starts warming up, and this April-May time frame for walleyes it's absolutely the best time to fish for them.
And certainly there's a lot to look forward to as we gear it up for the spring fishing season. When you talk to anyone out there, whether it's somebody starting for the first time or an old friend that you fished with hundreds of times, what do you talk about as far as what to watch for this season, the most successful places to go, and also just general safety concerns as you gear it up for another warm fishing season this spring?
Well, I think the thing is, we live right here in Sioux Falls. In Sioux Falls area, we're so blessed to have the Missouri River system so close to us. I mean, we can go, just a hop, skip, and a jump to get to Chamberlain and Lake Francis Case Reservoir. That's a reservoir that I've seen just increase in not only in numbers, but also size. So you can go out there in the springtime. I love fishing the areas where the old river channel swings in tight to the shoreline. And usually that's where the big fish kind of move up and down the reservoir. They follow the old river channel. And then when they want to feed, they move up and then onto those shoreline areas. They've already been done. They've been done spawning. And at this point, the females are starting to pack on some food, and they're going to be up there close to the shorelines and not only just past spawn, but then also up there to eat, looking for bait,
There's a lot going on this time of the year as you gear it up. Warm weather, a lot of people getting their boats out of winterization, whether they do it themselves or through a contractor there. When it comes to safety on the water, that's the most important thing, right? I mean, you got to have fun. It's such a leisure activity, but people need to remember about life jackets. They need to remember about buoys. They need to remember about everything else and lights and everything else that goes along with being safe out on the water, whether it's a river, a lake, a pond, whatever. What are a few things that are on your checklist every time you head out on the water this time of year?
Well, first of all, by law, you have to have life vests. So You always want to make sure you got life vests. You always want to keep your stop or kill switch hooked up to your life vest as well. Because, what if you hit a rock or a log or something like that, the driver gets thrown out, and if you don't have that kill switch, I mean, the boat keeps on going, you're sitting in the water. So, and right now, water temperatures are just starting to get up, from probably around 50s. I haven't been on the water the last week, but they should be in the 50s to 55, and it's still pretty cold. You don't want to be in the water for any extensive period of time because hypothermia at that point does start taking, you don't want to be sitting in 45 or 50 degree water temperatures for very long. So past that, just got to be conscious of your fellow boaters. You don't want to get too close to them. I mean, if you're on plane, you should be staying at least 150 feet away from any other boats or the shoreline. And, again, you just want to have a good time and make sure that your family gets out there safe and then they get home safe.
Yep. And I have to ask you this question because I've been on the other side of keeping distance from boaters and keeping distance from fishermen. You as a fisherman, what would you say is a good, safe distance and a respectful distance for people out there trying to cast a line and fish and have some success, and somebody out there on a jet ski or on a boat and out there cruising or tubing or having fun, which is perfectly fine. I love being out on the water. What's a good distance there? You said 150 for fishing, but what about for people out there leisure-wise?
Well, you don't want to have to swamp anybody. Yeah. I try to stay as entirely as far away as I possibly can, and that'd probably be maybe an eighth of a mile.
Yeah.
That would be my favorite. If I'm on plane, I'm going to try to stay as far away from a stationary boat as I possibly can. I mean, there are some times where you have boats coming the other direction, and if you're fishing in a pretty busy area, you're already putting yourself in a situation where you might get a lot of waves or might get boats, running on plane close to you. So I think everybody has to be cognizant for the other boaters, whether you're fishing or whether you're actually going from spot to spot. I think as long as we're all, treating others like you'd like to be treated, I think is probably the number one rule to adhere to while you're on the water and keep everybody safe.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. Talking with pro fisherman Ted Takasaki here, Tuesday edition of Overtime, ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. We're talking about boats and boating and prep. You got a new boat, and tell us about it, and just the opportunity year in, year out to try out this new stuff. Got to be pretty darn cool.
Oh, yeah. This is always an exciting time of the year because, I'm fortunate to have sponsors that provide me a boat each year. And Lund Boats is my boat sponsor. Mercury Outboards is my engine sponsor. And Minn Kota and Humminbird are my electronics and trolling motor sponsors. So they really support my fishing activities. I truly appreciate everything that they do. But they build the greatest equipment too. It's not something where you're using something that's inferior. This is all the best stuff out there as far as equipment is concerned. And so I just picked up my Lund boat. It's a fiberglass boat this year. It'll be white with silver and gray striping. And I've got the brand new V10 Verado from Mercury, which is the newest technology. It's a V10 cylinders, and it's 400 horse. I mean, this thing, you should see the propeller on this engine. I've never seen a propeller like it. Yeah. I mean, it is absolutely huge. So with those 400 horses, it's going to make this fiberglass boat, Lund boat of mine, scream, on the water. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's not so much going fast, but that boat, it tracks so well when I'm fishing. And then with the Minn Kota trolling motor, I'm able to really control the contour lines. I can stay in 10 feet, if the fish are in 10 feet, or I can spot lock and stay in 25 feet if the fish are in 25 feet. So it's all about boat control.
Yeah, it's year in, year out, cool stuff coming out from Lund, and I feel like you got to pinch yourself every year. You're probably like, it can't be any cooler, any easier, any better than this, and the next year comes out, you got something new.
It's kind of like your job. You do what you love to do for a living, and I guess I've got the same kind of situation. I get to fish for a living, and I never take that for granted. I worked really hard to get to this point. But nonetheless, it's such a privilege to be able to get out in Mother Nature and just be on the waters, and whether it's a windy day or a calm day, and then be able to test your wits against a species of fish that is just reacting to things. They're very comfortable underneath the water with where they live and what they do, and I'm just trying to match something that they want to eat. So, I'm very blessed for sure.
Every year presents new goals, new challenges. Ted Takasaki, pro fisherman. As far as your career goes, obviously you had a walleye tournament championship in recent memory. Where you stand right now, what's the next big event on the horizon for you?
Well, I'll be heading out, the first event is out on Lake Erie. It's the National Walleye Tours, the circuit that I fish. I have had lots of top 10 finishes out on Lake Erie in the early season, which is April, May. And so I'm pretty excited about going out there. It's a long drive from here in Sioux Falls to Port Clinton, Ohio. It's probably about 16 hours or so. Mm-hmm. But, once I get there, I'll be there for 10 days and, 2 days of the tournament and 5 or 6 days of practice. And then, collecting a lot of data and then trying to put together what I know about the lake at that time of the year and then make sure that all my tackle is appropriate for the conditions.
And a lot to look forward to, obviously, in your career. Let's cut it up, have some fun here. Let's talk about year in and year out. We talk about the new boats through Lund, and everything keeps changing, I'm sure, every year for you, which makes it fun down the stretch. But when it comes to finding new places, whether it's professionally or out there kind of recreationally and going out and fishing someplace new, is that a goal of yours maybe once a year that you hit a new spot or a new lake or a new part of a lake? Or how often do you think you do something new these days?
Well, the thing is that, every year the different tournaments go to different locations. So some of the locations are brand new. Some of the locations are at different times of the year. So when it's a different time of the year, the fish are always positioned differently. So every single time I go to even the same spot, I still, I'm challenged by what kind of conditions I've got and where these fish are at. Now, to find a fish, that's where electronics come in. And the newest and latest, greatest stuff is this side imaging, or, you forward-facing sonar is really kind of the generic term for it all. Like Humminbird is Mega Live, which allows me to point my transducer in different locations, and I can actually watch these fish move and react to a lure that I present to them. If they turn away, I change lures, or I don't do, I might not snap it, and so I can at real time see how the fish are reacting to what I'm offering them, and then match what they want. It's like fishing out of a bathtub almost. You can see the fish, you can see the reaction, and you can see them coming after your lure. So it's really opened the whole game to all the professional anglers that are out there. Every single tournament is being affected by forward-facing sonar today.
Yeah, it's really so darn cool, too. You talk about 100 years ago, 150 years, somebody just on a dock with a beer in their hand casting out a little wood lure out there and throwing it out, and now you got all the tricks, and you got all this stuff, and it's only going to get better and crazier moving forward, so a lot to look forward to.
They'll probably increase the resolution of our sonar screen so that we can identify the species of fish.
Yep.
And which way they're looking, I mean, who knows what'll happen
you could probably
in the future.
In the future, you'll probably be able to pull a fish out of the water and check out its fishing history. How many times has this fish been caught?
There you go.
When's the last time it was caught? What did it eat today? Everything like that. Certainly maybe on the horizon. We'll wait and see. Dream destinations. I know you've been all over the place fishing, whether it's freshwater, saltwater, otherwise. Is there still a few places on your list that you'd like to go fish, and a few fish or swimming animal, perhaps, that you'd like to catch?
Well, I tell you what, my most exciting fishing adventures ever was going down to Guyana, South America, and fishing for piranhas. And there's something about those critters. If you think about a supercharged bluegill that's 3 times, 4 times, 5 times bigger than your normal bluegill, but that's got teeth. That, when I caught these piranhas and you bring them out of water, their teeth start chattering. It's, it's clicking. And they're points that fit in and match perfectly. And their jaws are so powerful. They'll grab a hold of, say, a bait fish that I have out there. They'll grab that and in, no time flat, they're moving back and forth and sawing through that fish, and then there's a circular, bite mark taken out of that bait. They are the coolest, meanest little guys that I've ever fished for, and I'd love to go back there again.
Can't wait for that again. A lot to look forward to. When it comes to, lastly here, where to find you, how to follow along, give a plug for that, but also favorite fishing weather. We're changing seasons into spring. Where does that stack up? Ice fishing, spring fishing, fishing in the rain, fishing in the snow, whatever it might be. What's your ideal day out on the water?
Well, right now is the ideal time to get out and go walleye fishing. Yeah. The walleyes are moving. They are done spawning, and they're easily accessible. They'll probably be up in shallow water, all the way from the shoreline down to the first break line, maybe 10, 15 feet. So you've got them kind of penned in, and they're active, they're aggressive. There's no better time to fish walleyes than in April and May.
A lot to look forward to. Lastly, where to find you and everything, follow along what you're up to these days.
You betcha. The best way to catch a hold of me would be, my Facebook page is at Ted Takasaki. That would be TAKASAKI, or my webpage, TedTakasaki.com.
Always a blast to have you. And again, it's a bright and smiley face all the time. Ted Takasaki, pro fisherman. All the best this year. All the best out in Ohio. We'll talk to you again soon here on the show, I'm sure.
You betcha. Thank you very much, Bert.
All right. Pro fisherman Ted Takasaki, one of our favorites year in and year out. I'm going to try to check in with him just about every fishing season when we can, every 2-3 months or so, because he's a busy guy, and as am I, but I always love to check in on the outdoors and the fishing scene. Ted Takasaki, our great guest. We're back to round out the show. Got to be quick here. Coming up, the good, the bad, the ugly next on Overtime.
Streaming live online and with the app, this is Overtime with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you. It is the end of the Tuesday edition of Overtime. Appreciate you being with us as always. And special thanks to our friend Ted Takasaki, Pro Fisherman, for swinging by the show. Some tips out on the water. He says, and I believe him, best time out on the water is now in South Dakota. Walleye fishing getting underway. Opportunity to catch some big fish and stay safe out on the water. Follow along Ted Takasaki on Facebook and everything out there as he's got a tournament upcoming out in Ohio. Wish him all the best. And we'll check in with Ted again here very soon on the show. Time to round out the show, though, with a speedy edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Many days there are those who can be called a problem child. You know the ones. They have a tendency to display an ugly side. They have their whiny moments. Some display an outright bad side of themselves. And then there are those who stand out in a good way. Well, here they are. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Always a mixed bag on the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll start out, of course, with the good news. Could be very good news soon for the return of Philadelphia 76ers star Joel Embiid. That return is imminent and could come as early as tonight. Against the OKC Thunder, Embiid has been out since late January, has been delivering the final preparations for his return from a left meniscus injury. At the time of the injury, at the time of that reporting, it was reported early playoffs as the return time for the Sixers star, one-time MVP frontrunner Joel Embiid might be back as early as tonight. If I'm the Sixers, by the way, I'm in no crazy rush to bring him back. Obviously, you want your best player back on the court, but you want him back for good. And right now, the Sixers are still in contention. They're in that play-in. They occupy the 8th spot, and they are 2.5 games back of Indiana. So you certainly understand the urgency. Joel Embiid could be back as soon as tonight against OKC. Other good news, Warren Sapp is back on a football field, not as a player, but as a coach. Deion Sanders has added the 51-year-old Warren Sapp to the staff as a graduate assistant, which paves the way for him to work on the field with the team. Sapp is taking classes, introduced himself to the Buffaloes as a senior quality control analyst, a mouthful. He added, but that role would limit his involvement on the field. Sapp says, we're building mansions here. That's why I'm here to help you build your mansion. It's a standout player, another standout hire, and one of the best interior defensive linemen that the NFL has ever seen. Warren Sapp, a marquee name that's now on the staff there in Boulder. On to the bad news. Bad news for the Minnesota Wild. They're going to lose forward Ryan Hartman for some time, suspended for 3 games for throwing his stick toward officials after Saturday's loss to Vegas. The NHL's Department of Player Safety revealed the ruling yesterday after a phone hearing with Hartman to discuss his unsportsmanlike conduct. 29-year-old apparently was upset that Vegas defenseman Noah Hannafin was not penalized for high sticking him late in the third period. You chuck the stick, you put safety at risk, you get the suspension, 3 games for Ryan Hartman moving forward. And lastly, rounding out the good, the bad, and the ugly, the San Antonio Spurs will be without both Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sohan for the remainder of the season. The team announced on Monday. Vassell, who missed the Spurs' last game against the Warriors, underwent an MRI on Monday. And as for Vassell moving forward, career-high 19.5 points, and will also be without Jeremy Sohan moving forward. So the Spurs season never was crazy promising, but it's all about the future. Vassell, Sohan, as well as, of course, Victor Wembanyama, they got the pieces to build beyond this year. But this year just about done for the San Antonio Spurs. They shut down those 2 individuals for the season. We take the break, say so long. Have a great day. It's Minnesota Twins baseball, 2:30 pregame, 3:10 the first pitch time coming up here shortly, right here on ESPN Sioux Falls. Early show tomorrow. We'll talk to you at 10 tomorrow when the next edition of Overtime rolls around right here on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO.